It's been a few weeks since we tackled a Dynasty Superflex rookie mock draft, and NFL.com's Chad Reuter gave us a doozy to work through here. So we're going to be tackling a three-rounder. We're going to try and go through this as fast as we can without making this video 2 hours long. But we're going to go through basically 36 prospects in a three-round Superflex rookie mock draft based on the draft capital and the landing spots of Chad Reuter's four-round NFL mock draft. That will be linked down below. You guys know what the drill is with these videos. We break these landing spots down, the draft capital. It's good practice, and it's a ton of fun for our actual rookie drafts come May and June. So without further ado, let's hit the intro. All right, Danny, I'll let you kick this thing off. If you want to go first, you could pick the 101. Again, all of the draft capital and landing spots, you guys should be able to see them on the screen. Maybe round one and round two will show up at first, and then round 3 and 4 once we get deeper into the mock. But again, pretty straightforward, 101, super flex draft. We know where you're going.
For sure. And I'm just going to preface this by saying that the first 3 rounds of this mock, the 3-round nature of this mock, we spent a lot of time talking about these players across the cycle. If you guys want a more in-depth look at that, obviously go back, to the 1-rounder, the 2-rounder, but we're just spitting names, 3 rounds. We got to get through. Caleb Williams, obviously going first overall to the Chicago Bears. Great landing spot there. Ample weapons on the outside. I trust the Chicago Bears to be able to fix this thing sooner rather than later. I think they could be a fringe playoff team right off the bat soon as year one. And obviously we saw that level of ascension in terms of value like we saw with CJ Stroud. I can absolutely see that being the case for a better quarterback prospect with Caleb Williams, going to a better situation now with what Chicago represents versus what we thought about Houston going into last cycle. So I'd be shocked if Caleb Williams, after his rookie season, wasn't a consensus top 8 overall startup pick. And that value at the 101, obviously in a rookie draft, we take that every day. And
yeah, absolutely. It's you'd be hard pressed to find a college prospect who goes first overall in the draft, who's as talented as Caleb Williams, going to a situation with 2 wide receivers to throw to that both have 9, 10, 11,000-yard seasons between the two of them with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Yeah, Keenan Allen's a little bit older, but you have weapons there. You have Cole Kmet at tight end. You have a backfield with 3 running backs that are all capable. Offensive line, maybe get some help at the 9th overall pick. Maybe you get another long-term weapon at wide receiver if one of those top guys falls to you. So yeah, Caleb Williams, easy 101, going to be the 101, I would imagine, in every single league. At 102, the decision point here for me is Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Drake May. You get the nuts for Marvin. Marvin's probably my pick regardless, but the fact that he does slide 105 to the Los Angeles Chargers, I absolutely love that fit for him. Jim Harbaugh coming in probably means this Chargers offense won't be the Kellen Moore experience where they're throwing it 700 times a season. But Marvin Harrison Jr. does have an elite NFL quarterback throwing him the football, a guy who's going to take shots, who's going to trust him in contested situations because he's a gunslinger. So Justin Herbert to Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be a fun connection to watch going forward, assuming all of this plays out as gospel the way that Chad Reuter has it. So Marvin, an easy 102 for me there to the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned, Drake May would be in consideration from a prospect standpoint. But of course, with Marvin Harrison landing in the nuts landing spot, and we'll get into Drake May's in a second, but not quite as ideal of a landing spot comparatively, makes it an easy choice for you with Marvin Harrison at the 102. So I would have gone that direction as well. 1-3, like I said, you could go with Drake May, goes to the New England Patriots. This is a decision point that I feel like some people may be making between Jaden Daniels, between Drake May, and then, of course, if McCarthy goes 4th overall to the Vikings, I can see some drafts taking him here at 3rd overall. But I'm trusting my prospect grade. Drake May graded closer to Caleb Williams than any other quarterback in this class did to him. And I understand people might be looking at it, well, how do you trust him to accumulate value with the New England Patriots? This is not your Bill Belichick New England Patriots, man. People consistently think, oh, because this is how the Patriots were ran these last 20 years, that with Gerard Mayo, with new system coming in, that they're going to run the same. I believe if they take Drake May at 3rd overall, they're going to be able to build the weapons around him. They're going to be able to, whether it's trading for a guy like T. Higgins, whether it's, maybe drafting another wide receiver later on, they will support Drake May to their best ability. Otherwise, they would not be taking him here at 3rd overall. So with Drake May, makes it simple for me. Like I said, he's an absolute beast of a prospect, dual threat capabilities, big size, big arm talent. If he reaches that next level potential, I'm seeing a Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert type of combo, which if you're getting that in Superflex leagues, legitimately has 1st round startup upside.
Yeah, it would be challenging to see myself actually do this if this is how the draft plays itself out, because I don't think you would have to. I think at
Agreed.
104, 105, potentially even 106 or 107, you'd be able to get Drake May to the Patriots because, like you said, the narrative around the Patriots, what they've done, with their last first round quarterback, Mac Jones, failing to build around him. But like you said, it's not the Bill Belichick Patriots. Maybe they let him sit for the first year or half the first season because they have a capable veteran there with Jacoby Brissett. We don't exactly know how they would treat the situation right now. We kind of operate under the assumption that we're going to trust the dual threat quarterback, trust the arm talent, trust the prospect that we saw. So I don't disagree with that, but I will say this 103 to 105, 106 range would be very good trade down scenarios for those of you guys that would have a bad dynasty roster in need of a lot of things, because I don't see a huge difference in terms of the startup value with all of these guys. So at 104, I would be caught between a couple names. Jaden Daniels goes second overall to the Commanders. Obviously, that quarterback value is going to hold weight, especially given his rushing upside. Like you said, I'm not quite going to push JJ McCarthy up the board, but some people might, going to the Minnesota Vikings at fourth overall. In a trade up scenario, of course, he would have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, all these guys to throw to, Aaron Jones out of the backfield. I am going to also stick to my board and take Malik Neighbors here, who went sixth overall to the New York Giants. Explosive wide receiver prospect, as good in the eyes of the NFL, apparently, as we've heard, to Marvin Harrison Jr. He is an elite wide receiver prospect, one of the highest grades I've given since 2021 when I refined my grading system. So Malik Neighbors going to the Giants. There's virtually no target competition there, and he alphaed Brian Thomas Jr. at LSU last year. You could make the argument that nobody in that receiving core is even as talented as his college receiving target opportunity there with Brian Thomas Jr. So Malik Neighbors to the Giants. Again, don't know the quarterback situation. Don't know Brian Daboll, if he's sticking around there long term, but I like the situation enough that I'm still going to just stick to my grade with Malik Neighbors there at 104.
Yeah, and it's not even that I would argue it. It's that if Brian Thomas got drafted by the New York Giants tomorrow, I would be under the assumption he'd be their wide receiver one. So I totally agree. Malik Neighbors alphaing a top 4, top 5 consensus wide receiver in this class really speaks volumes to just how talented of a player is, just how great of this breakout year that he actually had. We've talked about it before that despite Marvin Harrison Jr. winning the Biletnikoff, it probably should have gone to Malik Neighbors this year. So getting him at fourth overall, pairing him back LSU to New York Giants, man, people are going to throw the Odell Beckham comps. And I don't really think they're outlandish, to be honest. If he reaches that upper percentile outcome at the next level, we could be looking at an Odell Beckham Jr. style player with Malik Neighbors. When the ball is in his hands, good luck is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, OBJ is a very, very normal comp, and honestly, I bet he would wear 13 if he actually did this. I would guarantee. I guess Jalen Hyatt's wearing 13 right now. I have no idea exactly, but I could see Malik Neighbors definitely doing that. So, what direction are you going to go here with the 1-5?
Yeah, so like we've mentioned, it's just been the same names in consideration for the most part. Jaden Daniels does go second overall here. Konami code value at the quarterback position. He will be the favorite for the pick, like I'll get into in a second. But you could also consider JJ McCarthy landing in the exact perfect nuts landing spot he could have possibly asked for. Vikings trading up to 4, securing him, landing in that system with those weapons. I wouldn't be shocked if McCarthy would be the consensus top 5 pick that the situation would point to in the scenario. And on top of that, of course, Rome Odunze landing 8th overall to the Arizona Cardinals. I also think would be a phenomenal fit for what they're trying to do, pairing with Kyler Murray. But like I said at the top, Jaden Daniels is the favorite for a reason, simply because I know how the market reacts to young rushing quarterbacks going high in the NFL draft. The overall liquidity that Jaden Daniels would bring to the table at quarterback outweighs those of JJ McCarthy, given the prospect that we've kind of seen talked about amongst the market so far, and Rome Odunze, who, despite being a stud wide receiver prospect, is still a wide receiver, doesn't have that quite ascension opportunity that I think a guy like Jaden Daniels does. If he shows even glimpses, some rushing capability, doesn't look completely lost as a passer, Anthony Richardson's a top 12 overall pick in Dynasty startup drafts. And I would not be shocked if Jaden Daniels showed those natural signs, he maintains a top 15 overall valuation. Am I as high as some other people is on this prospect? Absolutely not. But at the same time, knowing how the market works, knowing that he only has to show glimpses of being an advanced Lamar Jackson upside player, I can take that and potentially even sell next offseason if I don't fully believe in him. So I will take him here at 5.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson being the perfect example of that. If you didn't believe in Anthony Richardson last offseason and you drafted him 102, 103 area of your rookie draft, you can get out for a first-round startup value type of asset right now, and that's kind of the bull case here for a Jaden Daniels, even if you don't believe in the prospect. So for me, Jaden Daniels, I'm going to probably be under the assumption I'm going to let my league mates draft him for the most part, maybe take a share or two here and there. The guy that I'm going to take here, I know JJ McCarthy would be a very high startup pick if he goes to the Minnesota Vikings. I can't take him over Rome Odunze, though. I actually just can't do it. So I would take Rome Odunze here. Again, maybe the market consensus would be JJ in that 104 to 106 range. For me, if I had that pick, I would probably trade off of those riskier quarterback assets, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, and then move down for some of these elite wide receiver prospects, neighbors, and Odunze if they start to slide. So for me, with Rome Odunze, one of the best ball winners in this class, one of the best all-around wide receivers, football intelligence out the wazoo. Arizona Cardinals, really good landing spot for him. Actually, you could make the argument that he has a lot of similarities to his game that DeAndre Hopkins does. And DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray were very productive while D-Hop was still in his prime. So I actually really do like that landing spot. It's one we don't see very often because the Cardinals are picking at 4. And in this scenario, they move down with the Vikings, move back up like they did last year with the Will Anderson trade. In the case that here for Rome Odunze, the second that third wide receiver is available, they go up and get him with Odunze here. So I actually really like the fit. I actually do think this is a possible thing that we should think through with Rome Odunze because I could see the Cardinals trading out, moving back up to get their falling wide receiver value.
Yeah, and I mean, we've discussed it in separate mock drafts of the Chargers potentially doing that. Well, why wouldn't the Cardinals be interested in it, considering they literally just did it last year? So would love this. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Rome Odunze, he is an absolute baller of a prospect. Recently rechecked my grading to account for his combine performance, knocked up his speed and athleticism by 1 point, which actually got him into the top 10 talent range. Just 1 spot behind Malik Neighbors, 5 points behind Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he is almost as perfect of an X wide receiver, top 10 prospect you could possibly ask for. If you guys follow Matt Harmon on Reception Perception, his profile dropped today. He compared him to Devontae Adams, saying that he has the potential to be a 28 to 30% target share X receiver at the next level, which he doesn't throw high-end comps around too often, man. If you guys follow Matt Harmon, he's usually reserved when giving praise to young guys coming in. He's throwing out Devontae Adams for Rome Odunze, and he says that Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jamar Chase are his 3 best prospects since 2021. So now I personally slightly prefer Malik Neighbors, but I do think that the overall pessimism that I've seen thrown around for Rome Odunze needs to stop. He's a stud prospect, and he deserves to be a top 6 overall pick in this instance. I would have gone that direction as well, despite, my natural go blue roots with JJ McCarthy on the board. And speaking of JJ McCarthy, like I said, this is the absolute nuts that we could possibly expect. 4th overall trade up, Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson when he's fully healthy. Team that showed signs as a top 10 overall offense last year, top 5 when Kirk Cousins was healthy. This is the infrastructure we want for a young quarterback. He's got the dual threat nature. He's an athletic quarterback. He works out of structure. He's got a big time arm. Yes, is there areas of improvement specifically on touch throws, specifically under pressure? Sure, but I trust Kevin O'Connell and I trust this Vikings infrastructure to get the best out of JJ McCarthy. And if you're telling me I can get a guy at 107 in my rookie draft who has the upside to be a 2nd round startup pick, a session level of a guy like Jordan Love, like we saw this past season, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the difference between a prospect like JJ McCarthy and Zach Wilson is razor thin in this scenario, right? You got, other than the conference they played in, the big games that JJ McCarthy played in, they're pretty similar prospects. Both have arm talent, both have, mobility, both kind of struggled under pressure a little bit, decision-making a little bit. But JJ McCarthy in this scenario goes to a situation where he can learn behind Sam Darnold for a little bit, however long the Vikings would want to do that. And then also, of course, he walks into a situation with a much better offensive line than the Jets have ever had with Zach Wilson. And also, oh, by the way, just the best receiver in the league, one of the best number 2 receivers in the league, as well as one of the best tight ends in the league. So very, very good situation for JJ McCarthy. The way I look at if JJ goes to the Vikings is this top 7 tier becomes a top 8 firmly, but I still would have McCarthy 8 of that group in any kind of tight end premium format, which is why I'm going to go to the New York Jets right now and take Brock Bowers, who they select in this mock draft at 10th overall. The way I look at Bowers, I think, is we don't know where to place him in mock drafts, but now we do. The spot that he's going to go, in my opinion, is the New York Jets at 10 because they need other wide receiver or pass catching talent in their offense. I don't believe any of the top 3 receivers will fall to them. And also, they just signed Tyron Smith to kind of patchwork their offensive line need in the short term. They're still going to attack that position later in the draft, but I do think it makes them less likely to take Fuaga or Fashanu or whatever offensive tackle falls to them at 10. And that's when their board is going to say best player available at this spot is Brock Bowers. They are the Brock Bowers team, in my opinion. And Brock Bowers, one of the most productive tight end prospects we've ever seen. If you have a model of any kind, it's going to say Brock Bowers is a superstar talent because he was so productive for a 2-time national champion winning school. He is going to be one of the steals of rookie drafts, in my opinion, because I think a lot of people are going to see him slide all the way down the board, especially, we didn't talk about the other first round guys here, but I wouldn't be shocked if he went lower than this in this scenario because Xavier Worthy went to the Chiefs. Brian Thomas went to the Cowboys. I wouldn't be shocked if people took those guys over Brock Bowers in this situation. So Brock Bowers could be available as late as 108, 109, 110 in some people's drafts, and he's just simply too good for that to be the case.
For sure. I mean, it comes back to the value on the market and knowing that tight ends pretty much have a cap ceiling in terms of market appreciation. Because as good of a rookie season that Sam Laporta has, he's usually a third round pick in the majority of your startup drafts. Whereas a quarterback hitting like Jordan Love is going at the tail end to the mid end of the second round, despite only really showing it for one season. So me going JJ over Bowers is banking on the appreciation opportunity with the Vikings landing spot and knowing how tight ends are traded on the market. We see constantly, man, like you need to be Sam Laporta, you need to be Trey McBride to have liquidity on the market at tight end. Otherwise, people are just not willing to trade for you, whether you're Dallas Goedert, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, like try to see trades specifically involving those guys for draft picks or specifically involving those guys for other players. Maybe if they're moved, they're usually in, combo deals. They're, added on 2-for-1s. But realistically, man, I don't see people going out and trading for the tight end position. Now, am I saying that Brock Bowers is absolutely not within the Sam Laporta, Trey McBride tier? As soon as he's drafted, he will be valued within that tier for me. But I have a little bit of pause because of what happened with Kyle Pitts, because of how the market completely flipped on him, where if Brock Bowers doesn't produce right away, he's a little bit more volatile on the market. Whereas if JJ McCarthy shows signs, he has the opportunity to be a top 24 startup pick that I don't really think Bowers does. So again, prospect-wise, I think Brock Bowers may be the second overall position player in this class, only behind Marvin Harrison Jr. So the fact that you're getting him at 1-8, you're taking a tight end, and specifically if you need one in this spot, I'd be all for it at the 8th overall pick in my rookie draft. You mentioned a couple of names at the 1-9. I think you should also mention the name Bo Nix in this instance, going 12th overall, landing in a great landing spot for his abilities with Sean Payton in the Denver Broncos. But I got to go with my guy. You guys see the jerseys in the background. Brian Thomas Jr. goes 24th overall to my Dallas Cowboys. And this is a seamless fit, man. What the Cowboys have been missing for so long is size and speed at the wide receiver position. CeeDee Lamb is your do-it-all number one, but they trade for Brandon Cooks last offseason to add some juice, but Brandon Cooks is an older, aging wide receiver whose contract is up after the 2024 season. The team just cut Michael Gallup. There are plenty of targets to be earned in this offense. Outside of CeeDee Lamb, who we know we can pretty much bank in for 170, 180 targets, if Dak Prescott's throwing the ball 600 plus times, there is plenty of pie left over for Brian Thomas. On top of all that, this is a guy who scored 17 touchdowns in the SEC last year. You're pairing him next to a quarterback who just led the league in touchdown passes this past season. I think this is a match made in heaven. If you are Brian Thomas fans, you want him to land with the Cowboys. You want him to land with these contending teams in the late first round, maybe even rather than the top 15 spot, knowing the quarterbacks that are had at the end of the first round this year.
Yeah, this is probably the single best landing spot he could probably go to, in my opinion. Because like you said,
Agreed.
He fits what your team needs. He also fits what CeeDee Lamb does, not as well as him. Like he's a perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb. I do think, again, you're going to see some of these landing spots that we got. Like if you have a first round rookie pick, you would be quite excited about Chad Reuter's mock draft here playing out. And you take your wide receiver 4, I'm going to take my wide receiver 4 because the Kansas City Chiefs trade up to 19th overall and take Xavier Worthy as the, I guess, long-term heir apparent replacement to Marquise Brown. This is such a perfect fit, man. I know everybody thinks that now they have Marquise Brown, they wouldn't take Xavier Worthy. I actually believe it's more likely that they would take Xavier Worthy because they have his comp. A lot of people have comped him to Marquise Brown on a 1-year contract. It's a 1-year contract. You have Rashee Rice as your, short, intermediate, do-it-all, yards after catch threat. Xavier Worthy could take his time. He's still just 21 years old. get acclimated to the NFL behind Marquise Brown for the first couple weeks of the season, and then work his way into the lineup on, design touches, deep threat type of plays, and eventually take over this offense as their down the field weapon. Playing with Patrick Mahomes, the best downfield passer in the league, the best arm in the NFL. I love it. I absolutely love it, especially knowing that they traded up to get him at 19th overall.
Yeah, the fact that we're talking about Kansas City Chiefs top 20 picked wide receiver as the 110 in this class, like, we know what the market typically would be. We saw Sky Moore, a second-round pick, Chiefs picked wide receiver, go in the top 8 of the draft just in 2022. So the fact that you're getting a better prospect going top 20 to the Kansas City Chiefs at the 10th overall pick, man, Chad Reuter really boiled up a really good mock here. It's a lot of fun talking about this hypothetical, knowing the type of value you could be getting with Worthy here at the 110. Like that fit. And speaking of getting value, man, you mean to tell me a 12th overall selected quarterback going to Sean Payton is available at the 111? I'm taking Bo Nix every single time here, especially if you're a contending team. You need a QB3 in this spot, and Bo Nix falls into your hands, man. You must be licking your chops. This guy is extremely accurate, extremely cerebral when it comes to pre-snap decision-making. And Sean Payton, when he gets his hands on this guy, is going to absolutely love him. If you were to talk about a high-end comp stylistically, not in terms of accolades, not in terms of, could he be this guy at the next level? Because I think it's pretty outlandish to throw this into the wind. But if you're talking about a stylistic quarterback to Drew Brees in this draft class, it would be Bo Nix, a modern-day Drew Brees in terms of having the athletic nature to be able to work out a structure given the modern NFL, having the cerebral processing to be able to get into the right decision pre-snap, the accuracy, all levels of the field, man. Like, Sean Payton would love Bo Nix.
It's almost making me think he loves Bo Nix to the point that he's definitely going to take him, because the Broncos right now are slated to start Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. There's no way that a GM coach combination, whoever's running the show there in Denver, would go into this draft unless he was certain he's going to get the guy that he wants with Jarrett Stidham as his bridge quarterback or Jarrett Stidham as his placeholder quarterback. If they were worried that they weren't going to get their guy, they would have made a play for Kirk Cousins. They would have made a play for Baker Mayfield. They would have made a play for even like a Ryan Tannehill, who's still available right now. Like, they haven't brought in anybody, and it makes me think that Bo Nix is his dude. It makes perfect sense. Like you said, stylistically, he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world. That's exactly what people said about Drew Brees coming out, which is why he went in the second round and not in the first round. I do think that Bo Nix makes total sense for their offense, exactly what they want to do. And again, you're in a division with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. You cannot roll Jarrett Stidham out there as your starting quarterback. It's not going to work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Bo Nix, first-round quarterback, 111, just speaks volumes to the mock draft we have here with Chad Reuter.
Yeah, and I mean, we've worked through every single first-round pick, so there are no first-round picks available now. Only 11 players total went in the first round, Bo Nix being the last one that we selected. I'm going to roll to the running back position, and I'm going to stick on your Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks, who went, in this case, he went 56th overall to the Dallas Cowboys. Second round pick running back. I learned today, Jonathan Brooks' ACL surgeon works for the Dallas Cowboys. So there is a connection there. Played at the University of Texas, which is right in the same vicinity here. So I think they're going to stay in state. They're going to know the most about his recovery. They're going to know the most about how his surgery went. So if any team is going to take a guy who definitely would have been a top 50 pick had he stayed healthy, in the top 64 overall draft picks, second overall running back off the board taken, which we'll get to Corum here in a second. But Jonathan Brooks to the Cowboys, I mean, they have nobody right now operating that offense at the running back position. So I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they would add a guy in the short term and then throw in Jonathan Brooks when he's ready. But if they know he's healthy, I don't see why they wouldn't just throw him out there week one as their lead back.
Yeah, no, I agree. It may be, like you said, a little bit of a slow process. I've kind of mentioned this comparison before, but maybe early portion of the year, they sign, a vet like Deontay Foreman's not available, but a Deontay Foreman like vet. They have Rico Dowdle. Maybe the first 4 or 5 weeks when Jonathan Brooks is catching up to speed in the NFL, feeling more confident on the knee, maybe the production won't be there. But I genuinely think by, like you said, month 2 of the NFL season, Jonathan Brooks has the opportunity to be the lead back, 15-plus touch per game back on a top 5 NFL offense. You can't say that about a running back as talented as Jonathan Brooks every so often, because typically this type of profile would be selected in the top 40, in the top 50 in the NFL draft. So him falling here to a playoff team that needs that amount of touch volume that the Cowboys do at the running back position, man, Like, he's got the opportunity to be a top 5 dynasty running back down the stretch of next year if he's averaging 5.2 yards per carry and catching 4 passes a game.
Yeah, I personally would have taken him over Knicks, as much as I think you got to respect the first round draft capital. I mean, the value ascension at his position is just so much higher than Knicks' value ascension, in my opinion. So that's why I would have gone in that direction. We're entering the second round here, Danny. You are on the board with the 2-1. Let's try and speed through this round so we can rattle through round 3 as well. What are you doing?
Yeah, and I mean, this is no hesitation here. The fact that this guy's being taken in the second round just goes to show you how deep this is. Adonai Mitchell goes top 50, 49th overall pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. My comp for Adonai Mitchell was T. Higgins. Who is he replacing in Cincinnati? T. Higgins. He's compared to T. Higgins, in my opinion. He's lined up now with Joe Burrow. The value that he brings to the quarterback position, throwing 30, 35, possibly 40 touchdown passes on any given year that he's healthy. And we know with Adonai Mitchell, he is the touchdown maker. When Texas needed a big-time play down in the game, driving down the field, who are they throwing the ball to? Adonai Mitchell. Time and time again in clutch situations, we saw this guy plug it in and being able to score the game-winning touchdown, being able to score the game-tying touchdown. Adonai Mitchell has the ice that we want to see at the wide receiver position. Now, people might point to the fact, well, why didn't he show this all game? Why did he only come out in clutch moments? And I don't know, man. Like, honestly, like, you could question his work ethic. You could question why he wasn't a consistent player, down in, down out. But what I did see is that the high-end flashes are legitimate top 12, top 10 overall wide receiver in the league flashes. And anytime I can get that type of flash in the second round of my rookie draft, I'm taking it every single time. Because if he does live up to that potential, does live up to that upside that the high end of his film indicates, we could be talking about a guy that is valued, like I said, as a top 10 dynasty wide receiver and an early third rounder or higher in startup draft. So getting that, like I said, 201, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too, because T. Higgins, when he was coming out in 2020, was drafted in this area of the draft. Even though he had a much better analytical profile than Adonai Mitchell, people had questions about his film. It's kind of flipped here. A lot of film guys like Mitchell, but analytics guys don't.
Yeah.
But in the same circumstance here, you're getting a guy at 201 that has the ability to become a top end guy at his position, which is not something we would have said in last year's draft class, one that was a lot more shallow than this one. And speaking of, I'm going to roll with a guy who I have graded as a top 6 receiver in this class. Ladd McConkey goes 45th overall to the New Orleans Saints, pairs up with Chris Olave there. Again, tough target competition. You got a guy who's a certified alpha receiver, catching passes from Derek Carr and Dennis Allen's offense. Not a great situation year one for Ladd McConkey, but this kind of does remind me a little bit of like the Amon-Ra career trajectory where we weren't sure what we were expecting, and Ladd McConkey eventually comes down the stretch of the 2023 or 2024 season. I think that Dennis Allen will be fired a year from now. I think that Derek Carr will be gone a year from now. So I don't care about the immediate situation that Ladd McConkey has here. I know he's a stud prospect and I absolutely love him. So that's why I'm taking him at 2-2.
Yeah, no, he actually traded higher than AD Mitchell, but obviously the landing spot there, Cincinnati versus New Orleans, kind of swayed my direction to AD Mitchell. But I mean, Ladd McConkey can step in on day one and immediately be that wide receiver 2 for the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, man, past this year, I would not be shocked if that became a 1A, 1B type of situation where Chris Olave and Ladd McConkey are both, 1,100 yard, 7+ touchdown wide receivers. Because I really do feel like Ladd McConkey has a Chris Olave type of upside at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So at 2-3, what direction are you looking here? We still got Franklin on the board. You still got, Corum was the first running back selected off the board in this mock.
Yeah, I could go with Blake Corum, my boy Go Blue, but there's a receiver that I still have graded as a top 8 overall guy, landing in a spot that I'm really a big fan of. I've talked about the DK Metcalf, AJ Brown comparisons for Xavier Legette stylistically, but he literally lands in the same system that coached AJ Brown 2 years ago. Give me Xavier Legette here, going 46th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is the perfect wide receiver to complement what they have. Obviously, Shane Steichen, what he had with Philadelphia, that big, physical, yards after catch receiver that absolutely dominates on crossers. Why not just get the 2.0 of that with Xavier Legette? And now I know people will go in the comment section saying, how can you take a guy that only broke out in year 5 at this point in the mock, especially given the landing spots, especially given the other people available? Xavier Legette's that good, man. His film this past season was that good. If he did not have the analytical profile that he did, he would legitimately be a top 4 overall wide receiver in this class for me. I currently have him as my number 8, respecting that he didn't do anything prior to the season, but the film this year was that good as a separator, as a vertical threat, as an overall contested threat to be able to take him here at the 2-3. On top of all that, I trust Shane Steichen to get the best out of Xavier Legette moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you got a mobile quarterback. Maybe the pass attempts aren't there. You got Michael Pittman Jr. as a certified alpha, as we've seen. He just got an extension. So I probably wouldn't have taken him quite this high, but I actually have him graded higher than you. I have him at wide receiver 7 in this class. So I agree that the talent level is there, but I do have him relatively in the same vicinity as the guy that I'm going to take here. At 2-4, I'm going to go with Troy Franklin, who goes in the second round here, 51st overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, the Steelers taking second round receivers is usually a pretty good bet with Pickens, with Juju, with the guys that they've taken over the past couple of years that have hit, especially early on in their career, coming out, as first and second year and third year players producing at a high level. So for me with Troy Franklin, their offense is kind of going to be centered around the deep passing game, whether Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are any of their long-term solutions or not. Troy Franklin's a guy that had a really good profile, very productive for all 3 years of his career, got better every single year, and he goes into a system here where he's not thrusted into being an X wide receiver where he's going to face dominant press corners, which is exactly the type of system he needs to go to. Because as much as George Pickens isn't like the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL in terms of his best range of outcomes, what he is very good at is beating press coverage and aligning at X wide receiver. So with Troy Franklin, you have the flexibility to move him around the formation there in Pittsburgh, play him at Z, play him in the slot, whatever you need to do with him. And I actually do really like this landing spot. Troy Franklin going into a system where he can be the number 2 receiver, not align at the X wide receiver position to, because he's 176 pounds. He's a little bit less physical than you want him to be. I actually think this is a very, very good landing spot for Franklin, and I actually really like it going to the Steelers there at 51st overall.
Yeah, no, I really like that fit as well. Obviously, just trade Deontay Johnson this offseason, needing that number 2 complement to George Pickens. Really like that, especially given the vertical nature we can expect in the offense with Russell Wilson operating it rather than Kenny Pickett this past season. So, like that fit. 2-5, I will actually be taking Blake Corum here. Top 50 overall draft capital at the running back position really does matter, in my opinion. Lands in a landing spot here, obviously, with the New York Giants, who need a running back that can take a lot of touches. They lose Saquon Barkley, who was the highest used running back in the NFL across these last couple of years. The way that they were giving him 20, 22, 25 touches per game, we've seen Saquon Barkley be the fulcrum of the Giants offense. And I have no doubts that Blake Corum, while he doesn't have the breakaway ability, while he doesn't have the receiving chops of Saquon Barkley, can occupy a high-touch role in this offense. We saw it at Michigan. We've seen the goal line prowess throughout his tenure at Michigan, and this is really banking on Blake Corum getting back to the player he was 2021, 2022, prior to that injury that he suffered. This year, obviously, an objectively down season other than being able to score touchdowns, but that's coming off the meniscus injury. I really do feel like we can still get back to that 2022 level play where he was graded as the number 2 running back only behind Bijan Robinson, according to PFF. So get him here at the 2-5, top 50 overall draft capital. The team investment is there. I'm more than comfortable taking Blake Corum.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think I'm caught between a couple guys here. I think you could definitely make the argument that Michael Penix should be gone. 33rd overall draft capital to the Raiders. I still like a couple running backs and wide receivers a little bit more. You got Jalen Wright going 66th overall to the Cardinals. Trey Benson going 68th overall to the Patriots. Keon Coleman going 59th overall to the Houston Texans. I'm a Keon Coleman guy. I think I like the value of these running backs, though, to be honest. So what I'm going to do here is take Jalen Wright, who went in the top of the 3rd round to the Arizona Cardinals. Between him and Benson, there's not a whole lot separating their grade pre-draft for me. Jalen Wright is absolutely buried down the board in the sleeper system. But James Conner is up there in age. He's got a lot of touches under his belt. I think Jalen Wright would play sooner than Trey Benson, knowing that he's got Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson in that backfield. You got a rookie quarterback with Drake May. To me, I like the landing spot a little bit better for Jalen Wright. They're similarly valued prospects for me, so I go with Wright there. But again, I could have gone with Penix. I could have gone with Coleman or with Benson.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fine pick as well. I was caught between him and Corum. I just had to kind of respect the top 50 capital, knowing the opportunity right away, on top of having obviously James Conner there. But Jalen Wright's a guy I graded as my RB3 in this class. I do think that explosive, dynamic nature he brings to the offense paired next to a guy like Kyler Murray, paired with Romo Dunze in this draft class, man, like that Cardinals offense right off the bat could be one of the most improved units in the NFL, assuming Kyler Murray stays healthy for the full season. So I really like that fit at the 2-6. Obviously, it's always going to be a little bit sketch taking a third round running back in the second round, especially when there's some other second round players here. But we believe in Jalen Wright. The prospect is very good. And landing here, of course, with the Cardinals, with the upside of that offense, I think that's where I would have gone as well in your direction. And speaking of Keon Coleman, I do think we have to take him here, gets the top 60 overall capital, lands with the Houston Texans here. Now, is it going to be muddy right off the bat? Absolutely. You do have Nico Collins there. You do have Tank Dell there, but it's still CJ Stroud. And if they are taking Keon Coleman in the second round, I believe this probably signifies that Nico Collins may be on his way out. Maybe they don't want to pay him 25, 28 million after the year. Maybe they trade him, at the end of the season. Like, who knows what they do? But regardless, if Keon Coleman is going in the second round here, it indicates to me that they view the future pairing, the number one, number two, as being Keon Coleman and Tank Dell. And obviously, if you're getting a top 2 overall wide receiver with the upside that Keon Coleman represents, paired next to CJ Stroud, man, you could be talking about, if he has a very good rookie season, we could be looking at a guy that is possibly a top 24 overall dynasty wide receiver going into year 2.
Yeah, and as great as Nico was in his first breakout season with Stroud, as great as Tank Dell was his first breakout season with CJ Stroud, neither of these guys were thought to be elite NFL wide receivers. Who's to say that Stroud just doesn't elevate all tides? If you're a half decent receiver playing with him, he might just elevate the play of Keon Coleman. And we could have a 3-headed monster here where all 3 of these guys are very productive and they do decide to actually pay Nico Collins long-term. And it's just all these guys are at least, top 36 wide receivers year in and year out, kind of what we saw with Cincinnati there with Joe Burrow, seeing the talent that he had around him with Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. So yeah, I like the fit there. I'm again going to go back to the same decision point. Is it Penix? Is it Benson? I'm going to go with Benson. I trust my pre-draft grades. In the long term, I think Trey Benson would end up being the lead back there in New England, along with Drake May. In the short term, it's a very muddy backfield with Ramondre Stevenson there, with Antonio Gibson there. So Trey Benson would be the type of late second round pick that I would make on a long-term productive struggle team where I know I'm not going to move him anytime soon, because in his rookie season, I wouldn't imagine Trey Benson would be like an RB1 projection or anything like that. He's probably working behind Stevenson, and you'd hope that long-term he's able to actually get some work done in that backfield. So with Trey Benson going, top 75 to the New England Patriots, it's a good draft capital, and he would be hypothetically attached to a quarterback that I really believe in long-term with Drake May. And if Drake May hits, you're going to want his starting running back in the long term. So Trey Benson at the 2-8, again, we're talking about a guy that would legit still have top 10, top 12 dynasty upside at the running back position available in the late second round. That's how good these landing spots ended up shaking out in this mock.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, on the surface, you see New England landing spot. You think, oh, well, New England's history cycling running backs, obviously having Ramondre Stevenson there, not a good offense. Like, those are going to be the concerns for Trey Benson and why he even falls to this pick. But some cases, I can see him falling further in some rookie drafts. He still goes to top 4 overall running back in this mock draft exercise. But I can see in this scenario, some people value him as, the RB5, the RB6, the RB7 off the board. But I like how you said it. We saw just last year with an abysmal New England offense, both Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott pay off. Trey Benson is a much better player than current day Ezekiel Elliott. On top of that, like you said, the long-term commitment that they have to Ramondre Stevenson is very negligible.
He's on a 1-year deal, essentially. So is Gibson. So after the 2024 season, it might be Benson and nobody else in that backfield.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 1-year deal. He's coming off his worst season. Like, at this point, projecting that they're going to re-sign Ramondre Stevenson, I would say it's more likely they don't re-sign him than do, to be honest. Like, I feel like they should be going the cheap rookie running back route. And I mean, Trey Benson falling at the tip, and Trey Benson falling to them in the third round would obviously be that value pick to be able to add competition. So I really like that, both for New England and for fantasy long-term, obviously pairing with Drake May. So I'm going to go next on the clock here. A couple names left, obviously still a few names from the second round, a couple of the tight ends and the quarterback. I'm going to plug my nose. I'm going to be the one that's going to take Michael Penix at this point, simply because, like I said, the quarterback position in terms of value is so high. Like, we've seen just last year, the 33rd overall pick in the NFL draft was Will Levis. Will Levis is valued now as first-round level liquidity, despite showing glimpses. Like, yes, he showed glimpses, and I believe in Will Levis, but who's to say Michael Penix working with Devontae Adams, working with those Las Vegas Raiders won't be able to turn on the card? We saw last year that in the draft cycle, people were really low on Will Levis. The market was kind of off of him. I feel like Michael Penix is kind of getting that stigma as well right now. If he shows the level of appreciation like Will Levis did at the next level when he got his opportunity, Michael Penix could be valued as a top 15, top 18 overall dynasty quarterback, despite not making it into the first round in this mock.
Yeah, it would be a really good landing spot for him long term. It's just you don't really know exactly what it would look like short term. And again,
For sure.
Will Levis was, even though he's valued as a first round liquidity asset now, I guess the difference between these two draft classes is that you had to take Will Levis like 110, 111, 201 last year.
Yes.
And you would get a relatively similar projection here with Michael Penix at the 2.9. That's just how much better this class is. It has really nothing to do with what we think of Penix. It's like we were low on both prospects. So it's not really that different. It's just that Penix is in a much better draft class, which is why he falls to 2.9 here. But a pretty good landing spot, pretty good draft capital for him. He'd have a chance to play year one, have a chance to be the starter there long term. So yeah, good value there. So again, dilemma here is, do I go with a Ben Sinnott, who actually went top 40, Carolina Panthers there? Jatavian Sanders goes 53rd overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Do I want to dip into round 3 and bypass those guys for wide receivers and running backs and such like that? So it's difficult, man. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick and I'm going to take Ben Sinnott because me and you are both quite high on him. This is kind of like a tight end premium mock that we're doing here. So in any kind of tight end premium, I do think getting a top 40 overall draft pick in Ben Sinnott, who has the profile really to do anything that you could ask him to do at the tight end position. He was a very good athlete. He's good after the catch. He's great hands, good blocker, physical, everything that you could really look for. Very productive this past year at Kansas State, and also a very young player still. You're putting him in an offense where there's not a whole lot of target competition. Deontay Johnson comes into Carolina. They opt to go for tight end instead of wide receiver here with Ladd McConkey and Xavier Legette and all these guys on the board. I wouldn't do it if I was the Carolina Panthers, but they, for whatever reason, decide to do it in this mock draft. So Ben Sinnott could be a very productive guy there with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. But again, if I was them, I would have definitely taken McConkey, Mitchell, or Legette.
Yeah, no, I would as well. You perfectly summarized Ben Sinnott. I do feel like he has the opportunity to step in right away and be an impact producer. We're talking about a guy that I would comp to a guy like Greg Dulcich, Trey McBride, these second-round tight ends in the past that have shown the ability to come in as rookies and be focal points of their offenses. Trey McBride, actually in the second year, sorry, before you guys get in the comments and say he didn't do anything as a rookie, we saw Trey McBride in his second year being able to ascend to the level he is now, Dynasty tight end 2. And of course, with Greg Dulcich, coming into the season, we had high expectations for him as a top 10 overall dynasty tight end. This year, obviously marred by injury, but I still do believe that talent level exists for a guy like Greg Dulcich. I see a lot of similarities with Ben Sinnott. I feel like if anybody's going to be this year's Sam Laporta, Ben Sinnott is your guy.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer to that would be Bowers, but I mean, everyone's expecting Bowers to do that given
that's what I mean.
Drafted. But yeah, the guy that comes out of the second round and emerges like Sam Laporta did, definitely the type of guy to do that. So 211, are you going to fall on the Jatavian Sanders sword, or are you going to dig into the third round and bypass Sanders here?
I mean, Philadelphia Eagles, Jatavian Sanders just does not sound appealing. I'm not going to lie. I'm caught between a few names. I feel like despite being lower on Braylon Allen, I think that's a really good landing spot for him going to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Being the power back next to Rachaad White is really enticing. You could go with a guy like Roman Wilson landing with the Chicago Bears. I also really like that as well. And to be honest, I think I am going to go with Roman Wilson. I feel like the vertical nature that he brings to this offense, obviously DJ Moore being the yak threat that he is, Keenan Allen being your slot wide receiver, you add a guy like Roman Wilson who can be relied upon as the wide receiver 3 right off the bat with Caleb Williams, but by year 2, possibly they move on from Keenan Allen after one season. Possibly you can get him as the wide receiver 2 next to DJ Moore. And Caleb Williams, as we know, is the type of quarterback that ascends the talent around him. I think Roman Wilson operates as a day one type of vertical slot. I feel like if you have Keenan Allen, you have DJ Moore, you bring him in for 3 wide receiver packages, you let him work that third portion of the field, and by year 2, maybe he expands his game to be an all-around wide receiver once he starts gelling with Caleb Williams going long-term. So 211, getting a potential future number 2 wide receiver for Caleb Williams, because obviously DJ Moore is there. I'd be more than comfortable taking him.
Yeah, definitely makes some sense there. I'm going to probably kind of follow the same logic, only what I'm going to do differently is what I was actively doing in 2021 when I see a 4th round wide receiver prospect that definitely should not have fallen to the 4th round. and a bunch of middling prospects going around 2 and 3, like what happened in 2021 when we saw Dez Fitzpatrick and Tutu Atwell and Dwayne Eskridge go ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, Jalen Polk has a complete game, goes to the Baltimore Ravens in this scenario, which is in need of a sure-handed number 2 wide receiver. I really like the idea of pairing Jalen Polk with Lamar Jackson. I know it's taboo to take a 4th-round wide receiver over a bunch of 3rd-round wide receivers and a 2nd-round tight end here, but I'm going to trust my evaluation process with Jalen Polk.
Yeah, no, I really like that as well. I still viewed Roman Wilson as a top 15 wide receiver, but if he was off the table, I would have taken Jalen Polk there. So I really like that as well. Has the opportunity to earn playing time with the Baltimore Ravens right off the bat. Working with obviously an MVP quarterback with Lamar Jackson has the type of ascension opportunity we like. So despite being a 4th-round pick, I really do think he can not only beat that type of draft capital, but possibly smash it like Amon-Ra St. Brown has.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it with, Puka Nacua and Tank Dell, Amon-Ra St. Brown. These guys, why did they hit? It was fit, right? Fit's the reason they hit. And Polk, I think, to the Ravens makes a lot of sense fit-wise. So we're coming up on 45 minutes here, Danny. Let's rattle through the 3rd round as quick as we possibly can. Less analysis than we've given in the first couple rounds. What are you looking at here at 301?
Yeah, it's starting to get pretty ugly now. I'm not going to lie. Like you said, I want to take this guy, but he also lands in a spot that I don't feel like he could pay off right off the bat. I think I'm going to bite the bullet on your boy Braylon Allen. Now, do I like the fact that he's competing for touches with Rachaad White overall? No, but like I said, I feel like he's the perfect complement to what Rachaad White does not do well. Rachaad White, space back, really good in the receiving game. Braylon Allen, power back, can work in your goal line opportunity. Yes, does he have the ultimate ceiling there with a guy like Rachaad White in the backfield? Probably not, but we've seen A.J. Dillon have 2nd-round appeal at certain points. We've seen that type of prospect be a bowling ball in the red zone, pay off in terms of touchdowns, especially if you are a 0 RB type of player and you can get a young potential goal line contributor in the 3rd round of your rookie draft. I'm going to have to bite the bullet, especially knowing that he got day 2 capital in this instance.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't love it as a Bucs fan, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to go with a guy like this, you might as well just try and develop Sean Tucker, who sounded like he had some stuff going on off the field last year. If you're going to go with Braylon Allen, I would rather just roll with Tucker. So for me, don't love the fit there, but I think I could see the Bucs doing it. It's definitely a possibility for them. So I'm going to roll back to the wide receiver position here, and I'm going to bite the bullet on Tez Walker, who went 67th overall to the Commanders in this mock draft. Jaden Daniels is not the passing quarterback that I would love, and Tez Walker is more of like a one-trick pony type of guy where he's going to work downfield, but Terry McLaurin's a little bit up there in age. Jahan Dotson's been a bit disappointing his 2nd season after a pretty solid 1st year. So again, kind of just, taking the draft capital, taking a young quarterback. If Jaden Daniels does turn into a really good NFL quarterback, and I'm wrong about him, then it's possible that Tez Walker has more value here in the mid-3rd round.
For sure. And again, like, keep in mind, we are only drafting off this 4-round pool. Obviously, some of your favorite sleepers, like your Isaiah Davis is at running back, they're not included in this mock draft. So although I, from a talent standpoint, want to take those type of players, because they're not in the 4-round mock draft, we have to stick to the confines of the mock. So don't go down in the comments talking about why is, Isaiah Davis not in this mock. Why
Javon
is,
Baker and Jalen McMillan. I have Jalen McMillan as my 19th player in the draft, and he wasn't selected in this 4-round mock. Like, if Jalen McMillan was a 5th-round pick to the Broncos or something, I probably would have selected him over Tez Walker.
Yeah, no, completely agree. So before you go in the comments, make sure that context is added. I'm back on the clock here, and I'm going to be honest. I don't know as much about, it's not about I don't know about this much, is that I don't like this player as much.
Okay. We got to go quick, dude. Okay. Like, we got to rattle through them.
On the clock here, it's very unsexy, but we've seen unsexy tight end produce in this spot for these last couple of years with Logan Thomas. I think I'm going to bite the bullet on day 2, Cade Stover at this point. Yes. Did Jatavian Sanders go higher in this mock draft? Absolutely. Yes. Do I value Jatavian Sanders, the prospect, more than I do Cade Stover? Yes. But I do feel like we have to add the context there that working behind Dallas Goedert, working behind A.J. Brown, working behind Devontae Smith, working behind, in this instance, slot receiver Malik Washington going to the Eagles in the 4th round, it's tough for me to see Jatavian Sanders having the immediate production appeal that a guy like Cade Stover would have, operating that tight end spot right off the bat with the Washington Commanders, a team that we saw this past year really wants to throw the football. Obviously, having Jaden Daniels added in this draft class, I think Cade Stover at this point is a worthwhile pick.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on your roster, to be honest.
Yeah,
If you needed tight end production, I mean, getting it in the third round of a rookie draft isn't probably a smart
for
idea
sure.
anyways. So I'm going to disagree with you on that. And I'm actually
Fair,
going to take Sanders here with the
fair,
next pick because I don't want Sanders playing early, to be honest. I don't think he's
fair.
ready to play in the NFL. And working behind Dallas Goedert, he's an older guy. He's like 29 years old or whatever. Jatavian Sanders come 2025, maybe he's ready to take over that starting role. I think if you're in a position where you're just drafting dart throws who could accumulate value because you're a rebuilder and you have a million third-round picks, Jatavian Sanders would make a lot of sense for that type of build. So I'm going to just roll with JT Sanders here at 3-4.
See, that's the thing where I disagree to a certain instance is we see rookie tight ends basically fall off the face of the earth if they don't show
Right, but
signs
you're
in year
getting him
one.
in the third round anyway. It's not like he's going to lose that
Absolutely.
much more value.
But,
It's not like you have to take
but
this guy 2-2 or something and he's going to lose a bunch of value.
but I would counter that if Cade Stover produced in year one, he would have more ascension opportunity on the market. Not necessarily
Right, but
from
what is he ascending to? Is Cade Stover producing year one going to be worth any more than a mid-second round pick like a Jake Ferguson type? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, but at the same time, having the immediate opportunity right off the bat, going in day two, like I disagree. I'm not drafting him for the production. I'm drafting him for the potential appreciation opportunity that he has if he produces in year one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the same rationale I have with Sanders. It's just that
Fair.
you're not going to see it year one necessarily. You might see it in short doses, and then maybe they move on from Goddard or whatever after that first year. Regardless, I think both of these tight ends probably find their way into the third round somewhere. So at 3-5, what are you thinking?
For sure. Now it's pretty gross across the board. I'm not gonna lie. We're getting in a gross part of this mock. Like I think I'm gonna lean Johnny Wilson because he does get day two capital, and they do need a wide receiver to complement what Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers do well. Obviously, this offseason, they do release Hunter Renfrow, which was never a good fit when they had Jacoby Myers. I do feel like Johnny Wilson would be a good fit next to Devontae Adams, your true number one, next to Jacoby Myers, your slot receiver. Getting that big, physical, intermediate, chain moving type of wide receiver would help. Do I think this is a ton of upside? Absolutely not, but we're working within a confined list right now.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have picked Johnny Wilson. There's like 4 or 5 guys I would have picked over Johnny Wilson.
Really,
there.
eh?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with Malachi Corley with this next pick here, going to the Jags. They kind of already had a player like this. My comp for Malachi Corley is actually Laviska Shenault, who was drafted by the Jaguars. And Christian Kirk kind of fills the role that you would want Malachi Corley in. But regardless, I actually bumped my grade up on Corley after the combine. He weighed in a little bit heavier.
You're a good
I
amount
think he
higher
looked a
than
little bit
me.
better than I thought running routes. So I'll take Corley here with the upside that he potentially turns into more than just a gadget guy. Hopefully he can develop into a true outside wide receiver because even though that's his role now, he could develop into more than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm a little bit lower on Malachi Corley. I do have him viewed personally in a tier with Johnny Wilson, which is why I preferred Wilson going a little bit higher, having in my opinion, a more smoother transition to the next level. But regardless, I mean, at this point, it's going to get pretty ugly. You may as well just take some dart throws, and I do think Malachi Corley represents a dart throw. Speaking of dart throws, like I said, I don't really like the immediate type of production we can expect for him here, but you're going best player available. I will go with my best player available in terms of my grading. Malik Washington goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, target competition is not ideal here, to be honest. Like I don't like the type of targets that are ahead of him, but I do believe in the player enough, and I know that he has a good enough quarterback to be able to get the best out of him. So doesn't feel great, but 3-7, taking a talented player is never a wrong idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Will Shipley here. I would have taken Shipley over Johnny Wilson, Cade Stover, and Malik Washington personally, because again, we go back to that idea of fit. You lose Austin Eckler, you get a pass catching running back. Justin Herbert has shown the propensity to check it down quite a bit to a guy like that. So Shipley is a perfect complement also to Gus Edwards. Like Gus Edwards is not going to do anything in the passing game. He's not going to do anything in the like long run type of game that you're going to look for there. So I think Shipley should have gone higher. I think he should have gone like 3-3, 3-4 area just because of the fit. I know it's a 4th round running back, but I actually really like the fit of him going to the Chargers.
I have no faith in the player actually turning into that Austin.
I have faith in what he can do well. I don't have faith in him becoming a complete player, but he's not asked to become a complete player in this area. He could be just a receiving threat, just a change of pace back in an offense that has Justin Herbert, who has shown the propensity to throw a lot of passes to the running back position.
Could he be Kenny Gainwell? Sure. I just don't.
I think if you dropped Kenny Gainwell in the Chargers offense, though, you'd be talking about a much better fantasy asset. So even if he is just Kenny Gainwell, it's the fit that I'm concerned with that I think is actually quite good. If he's used like Donovan Edwards was at Jim Harbaugh's Michigan days, I think that would be a pretty decent fit there.
Maybe. I don't know. I just don't agree with the Kate Stover, Malik Washington calls. But that, I mean, at this range, like you said, it's taking players that you believe in. So that's fine. I'm on the clock here. Ricky Pearsall would be my next graded wide receiver here. Some target competition, no doubt there with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, with Bijan Robinson. But them taking Ricky Pearsall signals to me that with Kirk Cousins at the helm, they will air this ball across the yard. They have Zach Robinson. Kirk Cousins obviously operating high volume passing offenses in the past. And Ricky Pearsall, despite not having an overall volume allure with the weapons on this team, schematically is a perfect fit, perfect complement to what Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts occupy on this offense. So at the 3-9, I'm cool with making him my selection.
Yeah, kind of redundant with the Darnell Mooney signing. He's kind of the exact same player as Darnell
Sure.
Mooney, to be honest. So I don't know. I don't love the fit there, but again, he's a third round receiver. It makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to bite the bullet on Marshawn Lloyd, who should be off the board talent wise right now, but he goes and sits behind one of the best running backs in the league, which is why he's at the 310 here. He'd basically just be a handcuff, I guess, for the first year or two of his career behind Jonathan Taylor. But maybe this is a situation. I mean, the mid to late third round of a rookie draft, anyways, is where you're kind of taking handcuffs for the most part. Like you're not taking a mid third round, late third round running back who has a clear path to touches right away in their backfield. Like they're usually going to be behind somebody for the most part. So Marshawn Lloyd, a talented player, needs to learn a little bit anyways, working behind a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who has great vision, great instincts, who could teach him a thing or two, would maybe make him a long-term viable guy come year 2, year 3 of his career.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm on the clock now, and the best player available for me is actually going to be Brendan Rice, who lands sneaky landing spot there, landing with the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they do go with Roma Dunze earlier in the mock draft, but I really do feel like having two big physical outside wide receivers next to Kyler Murray. Like I said, I think this offense has the opportunity to be a top 10 offense in the league. Brendan Rice, I think, is a good player. To be honest, I was shocked how much I actually liked his film. I thought that I'd be a little bit lower given the archetype, but he's a lot more nuanced than I thought coming in. So landing him here next to Roma Dunze, I do feel like he's got the opportunity to potentially beat out Michael Wilson if it came down to it for that starting outside wide receiver 2 next to Roma Dunze. And of course, you got Greg Dortch, operating the slot. So cool with making the 311 the Brendan Rice pick.
I mean, Michael Wilson and Brendan Rice are just the exact same player to me. So I don't know why you would make this selection. Like Malik Washington or somebody like that would make way more sense. I guess he was off the board, but like that type of Jacob Cowing, whatever type of receiver would have made more sense fit wise. But yeah, Brendan Rice, I will close out this draft again. Same rationale as Marshawn Lloyd. It's like, he's obviously not going to be valuable yet, but Audric Estime is too talented to be available at 312, in my opinion. He's going to be working behind Christian McCaffrey, who's, an older running back, maybe deals with some injuries. This may be the new Christian McCaffrey handcuff is the way I look at it. So handcuff at 312, I mean, not a terrible option. If he ever gets any starting run with the 49ers, he's going to be valuable.
Yeah, and for the record, we had gotten the right prospects in the right spots for this third round, we would have sounded a lot more enthusiastic, but the good players ended up falling or ended up getting bad landing spots. The worst players ended up getting the great landing spot. So you guys will see we disagreed a little bit in this third round because, to be honest, man, trying to balance that factor is really, really tough in this range. Like the first 2 rounds went so swimmingly. Once we got to the third round, man, it's picking and choosing what matters.
Yeah, to me, I think I've learned over the years that going in the 3rd and 4th round, picking draft capital players over guys that you think are either better prospects or landed with better fits has proven to be a losing strategy. That would have caused you to draft Cedric Tillman over Tank Dell last year, or Jalen Hyatt over Puka Nacua. It's like, I believed in those guys enough as prospects, but I didn't account for like fit and things like that. So I think grabbing guys like Will Shipley, who I'm not a huge fan of the prospect, but I do think it's a good fit. Marshawn Lloyd, again, not a huge fan of the landing spot because he's behind Jonathan Taylor, but I do like the fit if he were to get any run in that offense. I think that's kind of what I lean towards in the third round. Take players you think are good prospects who landed in good fits. And if you don't know what's going to happen, the chaos of the NFL, if Jonathan Taylor was traded mid-season next year, Marshawn Lloyd would be a second rounder. So that's kind of why I would go with a guy like Lloyd, Estime, Corley, Jatavian Sanders, Devontae Walker. Like, I'm not a huge fan of where they went drafted wise in this third round, but I do like the prospects enough that I think they should be off the board.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And then for me, obviously, Kate Stover, like I said, I think has more appreciation opportunity. Johnny Wilson has opportunity to start. And to be honest, you mentioned Corley versus him. I had very similar grades on Corley versus Wilson. So that's just mostly a disconnect on how we view the players, to be honest. And then with Malik Washington, like we said, it's just best player.
I love Malik Washington. I would have probably taken him as well.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So again, we lost a little bit of steam as we get through this draft.
Yeah.
That's what happens with rookie
Got
drafts.
ugly.
Third round, still decent options on the board there. If you guys got to the end of this video, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel. If you guys are new around here, if you guys want to check out all of our other content, of course, be subscribed to the channel. And also, if you guys have questions about rookie drafts, who should I take in the third round? You know, where are our rankings lined up? Our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, the 2024 Dynasty Wall Street Journal version 2.0, goes 50 prospects deep, write-ups, player cards, grades, comps, all the stuff that you guys could be looking for. Post-draft, we're going to launch, you know, sleepers and values and that kind of stuff. The best place to get that is on flockfantasy.com, 30% off with promo code FSE when you sign up. You get a 7-day free trial. We're going to be doing a listener dynasty startup very, very soon, probably in the next week or two. So if you guys want a chance to be in that league, Flock Fantasy subscribers is going to be the way to do that. Annual Mother Flockers are going to have 2 entries, and annual Flockers and monthly Flockers and monthly Mother Flockers are going to have 1 entry. So if you guys want a chance to get in that league, definitely check that out. That'll be linked down below in the description. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.